Same thing.
Now tell me a story.
Okay, I can't really introduce you to the friends that I had, the Pekingese as we call them affectionately. It's nothing racial about the description because that's what children were called, whether you were a white child or a brown child or whatever, you were a Pekingese. If you're a small child, you were a Pekingese. Anyhow, I had 3, 4 friends that I grew up with before we went to school. Those were the only friends I had, except for the neighbor's child, Ines van Niekerk, on the farm next door. Anyhow, the kids' names were Papiso, Antoni, Puleng, and Nero. The most significant of them all were probably Antoni and Papiso. Antoni was a skinny little kid, a little bit longer or taller than I was. But one thing that I very, very clearly remember, or that I remember very, very clearly, is I was very adamant about the pronunciation of his name because he told me his name was Antoni. And the name was not Antoni or Anthony or whatever the case may be. His name was Antoni. And I was very, very upset if somebody would call him something else or pronounce his name differently. One thing that I remember very very clearly about Antoni is that he always had 2 snot stripes running from his nose into his down his upper lip and just about into his mouth, if not into his mouth. And he did not have clothes or shirt or whatever to wipe his nose on. He just put that snot nose in reverse and sucked it back up into his nose or up into his mouth or whatever the case may be. But that was Antoni. And he could not speak Afrikaans. So, of course, we spoke Sesotho. And that was the only language that I spoke when I was smaller. But let me get back to my story. The other friend was Papiso. Papiso was a little bit shorter and stockier.
Keep going.
Antoni was a little bit shorter and stockier. And one thing that I remember very clearly about him was the fact that he had a hernia, a belly hernia or a stomach hernia, whatever you want to call it. But it was actually made a big bubble, probably about an inch and a half diameter bubble on his belly. And one day we were playing, swimming in the pools around the on top of the mountain, or in one of the mud dams or mud tanks. And I jokingly said to him, he's actually kind of lucky. None of us can swim, but he had his built-in inner tube, so with his belly button, he'll float. He won't drown. And so that was the one thing that I remember Antoni about. Puleng, I can't remember so clearly. He was a little bit older than us and more of a keep them out of mischief friend. The other guy, whose name was Antoni, Papiso, Bob Puleng, and Nero. Nero was actually a kid who lived on the farm next door. And he was more Ines' caliber. I know later on, from years later on, that whenever I visited with Ines and we shot some Hyraxes, I gave them to Nero because he was always the one that had to go and retrieve them up in the mountains on the yes, up in the mountain on the rocks, boulders, and he did all the skinning. So he got the king's share of whatever we shot. And Nero. Now, where the name Nero came from, it was not Nero either. or Nero, it was narrow. And so those were my four friends, Antoni, Papiso, Mpuleng, and Nero. The other thing that I remember one day about Papiso is we were taking out birds' nests down in the meadow, in the weeping willow trees. And as I don't know how it happened, but Papiso was up in the tree and the damn branch broke. And Papiso fell probably about 15 or 20 feet. Well, into the puddle or pond below the weeping willow tree. But what was the strangest of all is the poor little kid fell on a cobra, which none of us ever saw and which was just there. Now, there's two miracles involved, involved in this incident. First of all, he didn't break an arm, or worse than that, he didn't break his neck. And secondly, he didn't get bitten by the cobra either. And to this day, I don't know who got the biggest fright, Antoni, me, or the bloody snake. But anyhow, that was that. Nobody got hurt, and we all had some good laughs afterwards.
About the cow patties.
Now, we had a little dairy on the farm, meaning we had about 12, 15, 18 cows, always in lactation. So these cows had to be milked every morning. And of course, come winter or summer, those cows had to be milked. And we had to go milk them before we went to school, when I was of school going age. Now, in those days, I did not wear shoes. My little friends didn't wear shoes. None of us wear shoes. And so,
What were you about? Sorry.
well, when I went to school, I was 5 years old. But the funny part of it was, I wouldn't say the amusing part of it was, I never, as I say, I never wore shoes, and neither did the other Pekingese. But it was cold in winter time. I'm talking about sub-zero temperatures. You know, there was frost on the ground, and water pipes very often burst because of the freezing temperatures. And we were barefoot. Now we're in the cow in the dairy milking the cows, not milking the cows. We weren't milking the cows. We brought them in and had where they were milked, and we took them out to pasture, set them outside to pasture again when they were done being milked. But it was so cold in the morning that we would, in between the bringing cows in and bringing cows out, that we had to warm up our feet. And the only way we could do that was just about wrestling each other to go and warm our feet into fresh cow patties, which were warm, just to thaw our feet. You can't imagine how good that felt. But that was it. A lot of people think we're crazy, but that's what we did.
Okay. So did you do that before school? You had to go round up the cattle? Before school?
Oh yeah. No, we had to go get up, go and do the dairy thing, and then we would go up to the house, and I don't know if I had to go wash my feet or whatever. We had breakfast, and then it was time to go to school. And my mom would take us to school, or we would go by horseback. Either Ines came with his horse and cart, or he came with his horse, and I took my little Shetland pony, and we rode all the way 5 miles to Gumtree School.
Tell me about Blokey and going to school on Blokey.
I can't remember much about it, but Blocky he was a little Shetland pony, stubborn as hell, and the only one that could handle him was me. And there was no gate that he could not open. And I'm sure of it, even if you had a combination padlock on the damn gate, he would open that as well. He wanted to get out of that, open that paddock, open that gate. He'll open it and he'll be out. And well, the one rule that my father had is no saddle, bareback riding, and that's it. And his reasoning was that should I get thrown free and clear, and I won't be dragged by the horse and kicked to death while the horse is galloping away and I'm entangled in the stirrup. So that was one rule of my dad with Blocky. No saddle. I didn't even have a saddle. We didn't have a saddle for him. We had a halter and a bridle, and that was it.
Tell me about that first day of school.
The first day at school was not so bad. It was probably the third day or so. Um, just got to get my thoughts together. I know it was before the first break, and I was hungry, so
You had ridden Loki to school that day.
no. I rode Blocky to school. I rode Blocky to school that day, but as I say, I was before first break, and I took out my sandwiches and I ate them. And that damn old witch who was old Mrs. Brown, we called her Mrs. Brown. She was probably 150 years old, but she was very, very strict, unreasonably strict. And when she saw me eating my sandwiches, she came with a bloody ruler, one of these 18-inch rulers, and whacked me over the fingers. Yelled at me to put back my sandwiches. It's not break time yet. And how must I know that? Nobody told her I'm not allowed to eat my sandwiches before break time. Anyhow, I decided, okay, this is not my cup of tea. So about 10 minutes later, the bell rang. It's one of those, the headmaster would ring the bell. There was no electricity or electric bells. It was a ka-clang, 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 ka-clang. Okay, so now it was break time. And that's when I said, okay, took my bookcase, and I said to Ines, I'm out of here. He says, what do you mean? I says, I'm out of here. This is not for me. So I went and I caught Blocky, put his bridle on, and rode him back. Now remember, it's about 5 miles. It's probably a good 45 minutes back to the farm. And my father was at the fruit packing stalls, and he saw me coming up the hill, up the long driveway towards the fruit packing sheds, wanting to know what was this all about. And I told him the story. I says, well, that being the case, I don't know. I'm not supposed to eat my sandwiches. I says, but besides that, school is not for me. I'd rather come and help him farm. It's much more interesting and much more fun for me. This school thing, no, not for me. He sent me up to the house, took me up to the house, told me the story. I told my mom the story, and she told me to get my bookcase again, my books, put me back in the Chevy truck, and took me straight back to school. Okay, well, that made for half a day, but that was okay. It was not so bad.
What did your bookcase look like, by the way?
I don't know. It's one of those that you with two straps, that you wear on your back, but leather, but with a flap that opens, and you put your sandwiches and one or two. We don't. Those days we didn't have books. We had a slate. It was a slate with a little frame on, so because there was no blackboard or green board that the teacher worked on, or she had one, but we all had the slate, and so you could erase whatever you did and carry on. No such thing as books.
So what did your mom do when she got to the school?
Oh, I can't remember the exact thing, but I know there were quite some words falling between her and Mrs. Brown, and then my mom chastised her for having such dirty nails, which my mother had no appreciation for.
Tell me, your mom would get upset because you called her Mrs.
Yes, that was actually before I was of school going age. It was just, when I started talking a little bit, when I
Your first language was?
My first language was Sesotho because my friends only spoke Sesotho with me. I had a Sesotho speaking nanny. She spoke Sesotho with me. And I was in the company of Sesotho speaking folk the whole day, from sunrise to sunset, basically. And I heard everybody calling my mom Mrs. They pronounce it Mrs. I called my mom Mrs. So I didn't know, you know. So I heard them calling my mom Mrs. So I called her Mrs. But she had no appreciation that, no, I'm mom. And, you know, yeah, okay, Mrs., you mom.
When did you get your first pair of shoes?
I don't know, probably when I was 4 years old or so, I must have gotten my first pair of shoes, but I didn't wear them. They made me wear some shoes for photographic purposes, you know, when they had us taking pictures of me and Ida, but couldn't get used to those things. And my feet were so rough, I probably would have worn the shoes out from the inside instead of from the outside.
So did you like having a little sister?
A little sister.
Ida?
Yeah, she was okay, but she was more of a damn nuisance than anything else.
What was her full name?
Her real name or her formal name was Alida, but we just called her Ida. You know the abbreviation, Alida. Ida.
Alida.
Alida Johanna Elizabeth van Toner. Elisabeth van Toner.
Oh, and what's your full name?
That's not something that I would like to repeat.
Come on.
You know, it was a it was a familial thing, a lineage thing, because the oldest son in my ancestry was always called Louis. And the full names were Louis Jeremias Cornelis van Tonder. And so, what it means actually, or what it entails, that I was not, my father was also the same names, but I was named, so they said, after my grandfather. But his names were also Louis Jeremias Cornelis. And so that.
You had numbers after your name.
What's that?
Did you have numbers after your name?
No, there was no such thing. No. That was your name, period. And yeah, well, there's what else can I tell you? You asked me about my little sister. If it was fun having a little sister. Well, as I say, you know, she. No, no. The thing about her, she was more of a nuisance than anything else. Because if we want to go and collect birds' eggs or whatever, she wanted to go with. Now, remember, I was maybe 4 years old, and I was 5 years old, and she was 2, 3 years younger than I was. So now all of a sudden she's my responsibility, and she would not keep up with us, and she always lagged behind and whatever. And one day we wanted to go and collect bird eggs, and I said, no, you can't come with. My mother says, yes, take her with you. After a long hum and ha, I said, okay, come with us. But when we were about first eggs that before we started, we were away some mile or so away from home. And I said to Ida, just remember one thing. If we find birds' eggs, that's fine. But if there are little chicks in that nest, if you find a nest and it has chicks in it, you have to wring their necks. Because, which is not true, I told her that if the mothers smelt the human scent on the little chicks, they would kick them out of the nest anyhow. So, and they'll die a cruel death from starvation. I said, yeah, if there's little chicks in there, you gotta wring their necks. And I made sure she wrung their necks. And when we went back home later on during the night, she was crying all the way back home. Of course, my mother wanted to know what was going on. My father, why is she crying? And then Ida told them what I made her do. My father did not to take too kindly to that. He spanked my ass.
You say spank your ass. How did he spank your ass? With his hand? With a what?
Oh no, we had a thing called a platrim. It is a leather strap with a piece of bamboo attached to it. So you can bring some, by this holding it by the bamboo, you could swing that leather strap down pretty well. And
Did you get welts?
no,
No.
no. But my father always used to say, we have this platrim because this thing has to raise you, you know. And I misunderstood this. I misunderstood his explanation. How can this thing raise me? But I remember one day we were, I don't know. I took the platrim and I decided, to hell with this. I'm going to throw this thing away. So there was a dam just behind the house. And I took that platrim and I climbed up the side of the dam. It was about 6 foot, 8 foot high walls, but I on a 44-gallon drum and on top of the wall, and I took the platrim and I threw it in the water. And that was it. I reckoned, okay, well, if there's nothing to raise me, there's nothing to raise me, but I'm not going to get spanked again. I don't know if it worked. I'm here. I'm mature, so I got along well without it. I did not understand that there was other ways and means to get to spank my butt, but that was it.
Speaking of chicks, you know what story I'm leading to. Screen doors and chicks.
Oh, that was birds. Yes, during the harvesting season, especially peaches or peaches and apple harvesting. But I can remember the harvesting peaches. We would have we would dry the laborers that were doing the packing of the fruit. They also did some. They cut the peaches in halves, skinned them and cut them in halves, and put the peach halves on drying racks. And I would say the drying rack was probably the size of it was a wooden frame, a 2x4 wooden frame, and with chicken mesh over it. So the peaches were put on these chicken mesh.
When you say chicken mesh, is that
No, the holes are about half an inch, about an inch. And so we wanted to catch some birds. So we took took a drying rack, put a stick under it with a piece of string attached to the stick, and maybe 30, 40, 50 feet long. And we put some seeds under the trap for birds to come and eat. Pigeons, doves and whatever birds.
tell me what other birds? The doves and what else?
It was mostly doves and finches and roop. Mostly doves, turtleneck doves, and finches and roof sparrows and birds like that. But the thing was, if you pull the string or the cord and the trap fell down, there was a bunch of birds under that trap. So many birds that sometimes that whole thing will go like this as they battling to get out from under the fallen trap or the sprung trap. Now, and then the next problem presents itself. If you pick it up and put your hand in there, there's a gap, and most of the birds got away. And how do we overcome this problem? And then it came to us, okay, if that thing is fallen and there's just a bunch of birds over there, Instead of picking up
Screen.
the screen, just walk and step on all the birds, and kill them. And then, of course, then you can pick up the thing and the birds can't fly away. But there was a caveat to that. My father made sure that if we kill the bird or birds, those birds will be eaten. They're not just going to be killed and thrown away or something like that, or fed to the cats or whatever. No, you kill them, you eat them. Which often meant, that we would spend a long time plucking the feathers and making a little fire and with another little grill, or even just put some rocks in the fire and put the little birds on the rocks and grill them and eat them
So you all ate well.
all the time. All the time.
So you had some good fun with your buddies.
They were good friends. They were good friends. I have no idea what has happened to them after all these years. We're talking about 70 years ago now. 69, 70 years ago. I hope life has treated them kindly, but nobody knows where they are or what happened to them, and if they're even still alive, I don't know.
Do you have any memories of Mimi? You had another name for her besides Mimi, your nanny.
My nanny's name was, yes, now I'm striking a blank. What was her name?
I know it's in the book.
Well, let's cut this just and then let me just see what her name was.